Chapter 33, HMS Scepter. The prince lifted his hand as high into the air as he could. Maybe, just maybe, if he struck this creature hard enough, it might descend into the murky depths forever. Thwack! Ouch! Cried Alfred. This monster was made of metal. As it emerged from the water, Alfred realised it wasn't a monster at all. It was a submarine. He was lying right on top of a submarine. It looked like a relic from World War I, a rusty old antique that Alfred was surprised was still operational. On the front of the craft was an emblazoned HMS Scepter. Scepter! That was the code word he heard on the radio. Revolutionaries! Near the name was a painted Union Jack. A hatch on the submarine opened, and to Alfred's surprise, an elderly lady popped her head out. She was tall and proud, and dressed in a way that suggested she was making the best of things, a hat, a string of pearls, and white gloves that had gone grey. The captain requests you come aboard, Your Royal Highness, she announced in a posh voice. Alfred rose to his feet. Soaked to the skin and shivering with cold, he trudged over to the hatch. Ladies first, he said. Very kind, but please, after you, Prince Alfred, said the lady, beckoning for him to make his way down the ladder. For the first time in his life, the prince was standing in a submarine. Submerge, barked someone from the shadows, and all at once 6 elderly ladies set to work. All Alfred could do was stand still as they bustled around him. Despite their age and in many cases infirmity, Alfred spotted some hearing aids, a walking frame, and even a wheelchair. In seconds, the submarine was sinking into the depths of the Thames. My goodness, you must be little Alfred, said a voice. Less of the little, please, he replied. I'm now 12 years old. I haven't seen you since you were a toddler. Then the owner of the voice stepped into the light and Alfred recognised her at once. Grammy, he explained. The very same, she replied brightly. She held out her arms and raced towards her. And he raced towards her. It felt so good being held again by someone who loved him. The king's mother had mysteriously disappeared from Buckingham Palace 6 years ago. She was dressed in that way old queens often are, all in one colour. Today it was canary yellow, with a matching hat, handbag and long white gloves. Just like the lady who had welcomed him aboard, her clothes had seen better days. Living on an old, oily, dusty submarine couldn't help. Grammy was a good deal older than Alfred remembered. She was stooped. Her skin was pale and wrinkled, though she still had that magical twinkle in her eye that made you fall in love with her in a heartbeat. You're all wet, she remarked. I was swimming, Grammy, he replied, and you used to be such a sickly child. Well, I never. Still, it's a ruddy, stupid thing to swim in that dirty old river. I had to escape. Yes, we've been spying on the Tower of London for some time now. We saw a figure dive from that very top. Must have been you. Extremely brave, I must say. Alfred didn't tell his grandmother that it was not a dive at all, but rather a fall. Thank you, Grammy, he replied. What are you all doing on board this submarine? The old queen smiled. We're waiting for the right moment to strike. Surely they couldn't be, could they? Don't tell me that you are the revolutionaries, he spluttered. Yes, you're looking at them. I know we look like a group of nice old dears ready to judge a cake competition. Alfred did not disagree, but the old queen continued. We're ready for revolution. All the ladies stood to face the prince and saluted. And are there any others? Asked the boy. Of course, we're just one group, continued Grammy. One group of many. But you're a member of the royal family, exclaimed the boy. How could you be a revolutionary too? What binds us all as revolutionaries together is an idea that the way this once great nation is being run is wrong. There must be a better way, a fairer way, We need a government. We need a police force. We need food and water for everyone, whoever they are. Power can never lie in the hands of just one man, especially if that man is the Lord Protector. So how many revolutionaries are there? Asked Alfred. Impossible to say. The Lord Protector and his goons have done their best to crush all of us. We hid in Knightsbridge Underground Station for many years. Very handy for looting Harrods, chirped one of the old ladies. But like many of the other revolutionaries, we were driven out of our hiding place. How? Asked Alfred. The Royal Guards pumped poison gas down into the tunnels. We were lucky to get out alive. Some of our friends weren't so lucky. The old lady's eyes glinted with tears at that memory. Alfred put his arm round his grandmother to comfort her. I've missed you so much, Grammy. I wished you hadn't left the palace, he said softly. I'm sorry, Alfred, but I had no choice. The Lord Protector accused me of being a traitor. I was only a traitor to him, never to my son, the king, my ladies in waiting, and especially by a bit of ram raiding. What? Well, we all piled into an old Rolls Royce and smashed through the palace gates. Jolly good fun it was too, added one of the others. Rather, said another. I haven't introduced you properly, exclaimed Grammy. You will have seen these ladies bustling around the palace, but you were just a baby. This is Enid. Good day, trilled Enid. Agatha? A pleasure, said Agatha, performing a curtsy. Virginia. Virginia did a little wave from her wheelchair. Daphne? Charmed to meet you. Beatrix, or Beatty for short. Judith. What? Said the old lady. I'm introducing you. Pardon? Judith is a little deaf. 2:30, Alfred smiled to himself. So how did you come to be on the submarine? We borrowed the sceptre from the Naval Museum. Ancient old thing she is, a little like me. Ha ha, chuckled Alfred. Now, Alfred, we need you to share with us all the intelligence you have from the palace. The boy was worried he was going to be laughed at. You're not going to believe this. These days there is nothing that can surprise me, replied Grammy. Alfred took a deep breath before blurting out, There is a beast in Buckingham Palace, a griffin made of fire. There followed a pause long enough to sail a warship through it. I have to be honest, that surprised me, replied the old queen. I knew you wouldn't believe me, he protested. What do you mean, a griffin made of fire? Griffins are the stuff of myth and legend. They are not real. No, this one is real, Grammy, I promise you. The Lord Protector has used some dark arts to bring a stone statue of a griffin to life. If we don't stop him, the beast will kill every last one of us. The old lady pondered for a moment. She took out a long, thin, white thing from her handbag. What's that? Asked the boy. A cigarette. Grammy put the cigarette in an elegant black holder, which she placed between her teeth. Then she found some matches and lit the end. Strike. Instantly, foul-smelling smoke clouded the air. What on earth are you doing, Grammy? Spluttered Alfred between coughs. Smoking. She took a long, deep drag. Something foolish folk like me used to do in the olden days. Something that you must never, ever do. The boy shook his head. Grown-ups were weird. This is a disgusting habit. Next, the old lady brought out a little silver container called a hip flask and took a swig. What's in there? Asked Alfred. Gin. Yes, I'm drinking alcohol. Another thing you must never, ever do. Anything else while you're at it? Asked the boy. The old queen took another drag on her cigarette before enjoying another swig of gin. Gambling, swearing, cheating at cards, putting 10 sugar lumps in your tea, eating toast in bed, picking your nose, peeing in the bath, blowing off and blaming it all on someone else, scratching your bottom in public, all horrible habits that you must promise never, ever to do. Alfred couldn't help but smiled when he replied, I promise, Grammy. Good boy. Now, if what you say about the beast is true, it is true, then the Lord Protector is more powerful than we ever imagined. The old queen took the cigarette holder out of her mouth and hollered, Ladies! The old dears gathered around their mistress. We must stop the Lord Protector in his evil plan. We will strike tonight. Tonight? spluttered Enid. Yes, tonight. We will all sound the signal for the people of Britain to rise up against this tyranny. 13 bongs of Big Ben, said Alfred. So you're one of us, replied Granny. We will make a revolutionary out of you yet. Set sail for the House of Parliament. But, Your Majesty, began Agatha, the lady with the walking stick. The Houses of Parliament are still under the control of the Royal Guards. The intelligence tells us that they have doubled their soldiers there. They break into the bell tower, and to break into the bell tower now would be suicide. Grammy took another long drag of a cigarette. Then Agatha, I, the old queen, will lead the attack. Silence! Descend upon the submarine. Grammy, with respect, you are too old to take on such a dangerous mission, protested Alfred. You are never too old for an adventure, she retorted. There was a hurrah from the ladies on board. Hurrah! Looking around, Alfred realised that his grandmother, who must have been 80-something, was probably the youngest of the revolutionaries. I'll come too, he announced. Alfred, with respect, you are too young for such a dangerous mission. The boy thought for a moment before exclaiming, You are never too young for adventure. There was another hurrah from the crew. This one was much more hesitant than the last. Hurrah! That's my boy, said Grammy, patting her grandson on the head a little too hard for his liking. Pat, pat, pat. Now, Enid, set a course for Big Ben, announced the old queen. Aye, aye, Captain, replied Enid, and the submarine surged through the water. Chapter 34, A Carpet of Rats. Alfred was stationed at the periscope as the submarine snaked its way along the River Thames. Being underwater was the perfect cover for the revolutionaries. On HMS Sceptre, they could move around London undetected. Soon, the submarine had reached the Houses of Parliament. This Gothic structure sat right on the River Thames. For hundreds of years, it had been a place where the politicians met to debate the important issues of the day. Now, there were no politicians, no elections, no democracy. As a result, the Houses of Parliament were empty and had fallen into total disrepair. The only part of the building that did still function was the clock tower, home of the bell known as Big Ben. This chimed on every hour, telling the people of London the time. Now that it was dark all day and all night, it was hard to tell if 3 chimes meant 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning. Still, it was one of the very last symbols of the old order that was still working. If Big Ben still struck on the hour every hour, it gave the illusion that life was somehow normal. It was important to the Lord Protector, who kept the Houses of Parliament under armed guard at all times. Big Ben in sight, Grammy. Captain Grammy. Captain, spluttered Alfred. Excellent work, sailor, replied the old queen. Now, ladies, there are revolutionaries all over London, all over Britain awaiting our signal. When Big Ben chimes 13 times, that will send a message for miles around. The moment has finally arrived for revolution. Revolution, chimed the old dears together. I will lead a team of 2 ladies, good and true, to the base of the clock tower. The old queen unrolled a diagram of the tower. From the intelligence we have gathered, the so-called Royal Guards are stationed here, here, and here. With her gloved finger, she indicated a number of places at the base and top of the tower. Our mission is to seize control of the bell tower itself at the stroke of midnight. A moment too soon and the guard will raise the alarm. A moment too late and we'll have missed our chance. Instead of 12 strikes, we will change the clock's working to strike 13. Once safely back here in HMS Sceptre, we will be ready to launch the orb. Orb? Asked Alfred. The old queen winked mischievously and paced over to a huge metal container. She whisked off a cover to reveal an antique torpedo with orb emblazoned on it. "Oh my goodness, Grammy," exclaimed the boy. All of a sudden he was terrified these old dears might blow themselves up, taking him with them. "Beauty, isn't she?" said Grammy, patting the torpedo a little too hard for Alfred's liking. "This will blow a ruddy great hole in the side of the Tower of London, freeing all those innocent folk locked up there." "I hope you know what you're doing, Grammy," remarked Alfred. "Mama is one of those prisoners." "Of course we do, boy. Just look at my crack team. We are in our prime." "Hurrah!" chimed the old ladies together. Their prime looked a while ago, but the prince said nothing. It wouldn't help. "Enid," called out the old queen. "Yes, Captain," she replied. "Are you coming with me and my boy? And Agatha?" "Do I have to?" exclaimed Agatha. "Yes. Now, ladies." Alfred gave his grandmother a look. "And gentlemen, follow me." The ladies picked up their handbags. "What do the old dears need their handbags for?" thought Alfred. Next, Grammy grabbed a rusty old torch, then led the other three up the metal ladder and out of the submarine. The four of them stood wobbling on the bow of the vessel as it gently rocked in the swell of the Thames. Alfred looked up at the clock tower and took a deep breath. After all the bravado with the old ladies, he was beginning to feel sick with nerves. "You tickety-boo, boy?" asked the old queen. "Yes, Captain. Ready for action," he lied. She swung a rope with a hook at the end of it back and forth a few times. Then with all her might, she threw it high into the air. Whoosh! The end hooked onto the ledge of the Houses of Parliament. Clunk! Grammy checked it was secure, then looking smug with her handiwork, she hissed, "Still got it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, follow me." One by one, the three old dears used the rope to scale the river wall. Agatha put her walking stick between her teeth like a pirate might a cutlass as she climbed. Alfred went last, and before long the group found themselves inside the deserted chamber of the House of Commons. The prince had seen pictures of this place in his history books. In the old days, it was crowded with politicians. Now it had been ransacked. Windows had been smashed, and those distinctive green leather benches had been ripped, and the speaker's chair upturned. When Alfred looked down at the floor, he realised something was very wrong. "The carpet," he whispered. "It's moving." The old queen answered, "Rats." A sea of rats was rolling over the floor, thousands of them. "Let's get out of here," whispered the boy. Grammy checked her little gold watch. "We have 10 minutes until midnight. Move out." She gestured with her hand, and Enid and Agatha, who had been catching their breath, followed on. They passed down hallway after hallway in the Houses of Parliament. Everywhere they stepped, rats scattered. Scratch, scratch, scratch. No one said a word until the old queen walked straight into what she thought was a net. "Help!" she cried. She'd become tangled in something that hung from one side of the wall to the other. It was only when the other three began untangling her that they realised what it was. "A spider's web," said Alfred as he pulled the cobwebs off his grandmother. "No one had been down here in years," muttered the old queen, brushing a giant spider over her shoulder as if it were a fleck of dandruff. "Onwards." They pressed on, illuminated only by the rusty old torch she was holding. As they neared a turn in the hallway, she placed her finger to her lips. "What does that mean?" Enid asked. "Be quiet, dear," replied